in South Africa is ugly. But it is also populist and it is reactionary. And I've maintained throughout that the March and March movement, and I refer to it as a movement because it's got a number of various other organizations now, including also the MK Party, that is part of this whole populist, vulgar hate movement. And this movement is directly funded by Western imperialists and also by Zionist business people. Again, I'm doing my investigations and research. There's one particular Zionist businessman in South Africa who's gone out of his way to say that he wants to see South Africa's coherency, the unity of South Africa, to collapse. He wants to see inside South Africa ethnic division and the various ethnic groups in South Africa to turn on each other. And he wants to destroy South Africa's image within the African continent. Now, I've got my crosshairs on him. And in due course, I will reveal who he is together with the rest of the cohorts who are supporting him. So March and March is also not simply a natural organic process and movement. It is also in a very deliberate way stoked on, manipulated, managed like marionettes, puppets on a string, and funded. And Israeli Zionist money is directly involved in stoking on the actions of March and March. Now, it is a totally disgusting, unacceptable situation that any South African can turn on a fellow brother and sister from the rest of Africa. And I'm not saying that I don't understand the challenges that my fellow South Africans are faced with. Many of those challenges are much worse than I have, because in the past I was privileged by apartheid, I continue to be privileged. So I must always put that as a footnote when I speak about these issues. But fellow black African South Africans cannot claim that they are in the first instance losing their jobs and that the financial disaster that they are faced with in the most unequal society in the world is because fellow brothers and sisters from the rest of the African continent come to South Africa. Yes, I know that at the coalface they may sometimes feel like that and it may appear like that. But the essence of what we are faced with is the capitalist economic system. And that system is deliberately dividing and ruling. And it is pitting people against each other. And it suits the primarily white capitalists, white monopoly capitalists in South Africa, to have a large group of black Africans who've entered South Africa in the search for a better life, who in many instances are undocumented, which is wrong. They should be documented. That is a failure of the government, and the government needs to take responsibility for that failure. They cannot escape it. The Department of Home Affairs is corrupt to the core, and it allows many of the black African brothers and sisters who come into South Africa to enter without proper registration and documentation. But there's no ways that black South Africans are living in the poverty, the deprivation, the squalor, and the unemployment because fellow Africans from the rest of the continent are also coming to South Africa. That is a fallacy. But it is a fallacy that suits the white monopoly capitalists very well. Because today they can employ an unregistered, undocumented, black worker from the rest of the African continent at cutthroat wages, way under the minimum wage line, and therefore also undermine and cut the salaries of South African citizens. And they enjoy doing it. They also love the kind of divisions that's happening now, because it takes a whole lot of the pressure off them, where the real issue should have been, what is happening with the restitution of land, the return of land without compensation? What is happening with the restructuring of the South African economy? Why are big white monopoly capitalist companies closing factories and industries here in South Africa? Why are many of the mining companies in South Africa still dominated by international shareholding, which is predominantly white monopoly capitalist shareholders? And why are we not making sure that we enrich the minerals that we mine in this country, and that process of enrichment of the minerals also help to create a whole new wave of jobs in South Africa? So none of these questions, these are the critical questions. Now you have certain people like Jacinta Ngubese Zuma and some of those who run with her going around saying to black South Africans, it's because of the black foreigner. But interestingly enough, they do not raise the question about the German foreigner, the British, the Spanish, or even foreigners from the rest of Asia.
Buying billions of dollars worth of property.
Well, I'm often in Cape Town, and I can see what is happening with the gentrification of places like Greenpoint and Sea Point, which is now totally in the hands of white European foreigners and Zionists. I'm a little bit hesitant to say specifically Jews, because I'm not anti-Semitic. But Israelis who come from apartheid Israel, from Zionist Israel, who also fled the more current consequences of their genocidal actions in terms of the courageous actions that Iran had taken and the missile attacks that Iran launched on Zionist Israel. Now they run to Greenpoint and Sea Point and other areas. And I do not see Jacinta Ngubese Zuma and this other Mkhize fellow running after them, pointing out to them that they are foreigners, because they are far more, much more foreigners
to the continent
than any black African who come from the rest of the African continent.